Marine Ace of Aces, Joe Smokey Foss by the Fat Electrician.
All right, if you've been watching my channel for a minute, you know what happens when our hero has bad eyesight. Let's see what happens when they have better than 20/20 vision.
Amazing. I'm ready.
Today we're talking about Joe Foss, aka Smokey, America's first ace of aces from World War II. Ladies and gentlemen, we've already talked about John Basilone, the legendary Marine Corps machine gunner, and his heroic actions on Iwo Jima and Henderson Airfield, where he earned the Medal of Honor. But what we haven't talked about is that while John Basilone was on the ground at night repelling wave after wave of Japanese soldiers, there was another group of heroes that defended the airfield from above during the day, the legendary Marine Corps Cactus Air Force. Like all the other Marines on Guadalcanal, they were outgunned, outnumbered, and somehow, in typical Marine Corps fashion, they managed to win anyways. And they did it by rallying around one of the greatest fighter pilots in American history, and somehow you've probably never even heard of him. Well, you're gonna learn today, right after a word from our sponsor.
Delete me.
What a good intro. Yeah, I have not heard of this individual personally. Once again, something that I'm glad to learn, because as it turns out, I don't know. It's so strange how certain things get related and certain things get lost in transit, and that's why I do appreciate the Fat Electrician for just bringing so many cool people. Is that looks like an MP5? Is that a Zenith or is that an actual HK?
What do you know with my MP5?
This is my MP5.
What am I supposed to use for home defense?
Our MP5, and there, because I've made the funny communism joke, the hair on the Fat Electrician's neck is now standing up somewhere. He feels that there's a disturbance in the force.
Do you want the 12 gauge or the 300?
I love you.
I know.
This video is brought to you by Delete Me, okay? Super simple business model. You give them money, they turn around and they make sure that online data brokers are not selling your personal information online. Okay, here's the deal. Pretty much anytime you use a free service on the internet and you click that little box that says, I agree to the terms and conditions, you've basically just agreed to allow them to harvest as much of your personal information as humanly possible. They then turn around and sell that to online data brokers, and that's how they can afford to offer you a free service. But when you have Delete Me, they go and they monitor all of these online data brokers for your personal information, and then if they find it, they submit all the opt-out forms on your behalf, so they have to take down and stop selling that information. So when you buy Delete Me, you're not actually buying anything, you're just buying your way out of all the negative consequences of all the free shit that you've already gotten. And because they continue to monitor those data brokers, you're buying yourself out of all the future negative consequences of all the free shit that you haven't even gotten yet. So if you want to give Delete Me a try, there's going to be a link and a discount code down below. Let's get back to the video.
I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Like, the audio is consistent, visuals made sense. Once again, I don't know, something about the banner just doesn't sit right with me, but that's a subjective thing. Like right here, as you can see, we have like, you know, good, 45-ish% of the screen on the left taken up by that, along with it. It just feels like it's really cluttered. That being said, it kind of feels like a Zoom call kind of thing. Aesthetically, it makes sense. I would give this an 8 out of 10. I think that I want more innovation, or would be looking at something more innovative, kind of like Internet Historian does, or like Seth Talk does, right? Where they go kind of above and beyond. I think the Fat Electrician's strength, though, if I had to be objective about it, is that they're very quick, concise, down to earth, and very forward. I was watching a video by Saberspark, actually. I was trying to watch it, is the keyword here, trying. It was Butch Hartman's fall, effectively, dude who made Danny Phantom and Fairly Odd Parents. I honestly couldn't get past the ad read. So I do have my opinions on ad reads. I absolutely do. The ad read just felt like it droned on way too long, and ultimately I couldn't actually continue the video. So people have different ways of doing ads. That's why I like critiquing them. I think if I have to look at it objectively, this is still a far better than average ad read. Is it necessarily a 9 or a 10? I don't think it pushes that. But contextually, what the Fat Electrician does, being able to be as direct about it as possible and as concise about it, just, you know, that no BS mentality, I have a lot of respect for that.
All right, our story begins on April 17th, 1915, when Mary and Frank Foss give birth to their first son, Joe Foss, in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Growing up, Joe had a younger brother and sister, and they grew up on a 120-acre farm inside of an old farmhouse that had no electricity, no running water, and he was dirt poor pretty much the entire time. But it was the Midwest in the early 1900s, so everybody else was dirt poor too, so he never really noticed. Growing up, Joe and his siblings' lives were pretty much school, hunting, fishing, and working the entire time. And Joe's dad taught him absolutely everything. Joe said he was the best shot he'd ever seen in his entire life, and that was after serving throughout World War II. And as he continued to get older, in the eyes of Joe, his dad got more and more awesome as he discovered the incredible, impeccable dad lore that his dad had before his mom made him settle down and become a farmer. Joe's dad, Frank Foss, was an absolute wild man before his mom made him settle down, and despite that, he still kind of was a crazy guy. You gotta remember, this is the early 1900s. People don't have TVs. If you've seen a boxing match, it was probably in person, and it was probably at like the state fair or a traveling carnival or something. Well, Frank Foss, Joe's dad, would always go and compete at every local event for boxing and wrestling. When I say wrestling, I don't mean like he put on a singlet and tried to pin another guy's shoulder blades to the ground like you think of wrestling at like high school or collegiate level.
Sure.
No, this was old school catch wrestling, which is more akin to Brazilian jiu-jitsu, where they're trying to tap each other out with arm bars and chokeholds. And Joe's dad, Frank, never lost. And as he gets older, he starts to realize like, oh, all the other kids at school, their dads aren't gigantic badasses. What's going on here? So he starts asking Frank and Mary questions. Come to find out, Frank traveled the country with the Ringling Circus performing back in the day.
Nice.
After that, he was a conductor for the railroad. He'd also been interested in aviation pretty much since it was invented and had survived several plane crashes, and Joe said he was the best mechanic alive. The guy could fix and do anything, and he worked his ass off 24/7, and he was Joe's absolute hero. Because his dad was interested in aviation, when Joe was 12 years old, he took all of his kids out to a Charles Lindbergh air show, and that got Joe interested in it as well. Then when he was 16, Dad had saved up enough money for him and Joe to go up in a plane with legendary South Dakota pilot Clyde Ice, and that sealed the deal. Joe wanted to be a pilot. Several years after that, in 1933, Joe is 18 years old, and there is an enormous thunderstorm. The rain is coming down so heavy that you can't even see your hand in front of your face. Joe's dad, Frank, gets caught out in this storm, and he's driving along in his car just trying to make it home,
no.
probably driving pretty safe, and for some reason his car just stalls out. What Frank doesn't know is the car stalled out because he drove through a puddle, and inside of that puddle is a downed power line. So when he opens the door, grabs his flashlight, and steps out to investigate and try to fix his car because he's an incredible mechanic, he is electrocuted and killed almost immediately.
I do want to actually, before we get into the story, to the rest of that, I do want to point out the subtle sound effects. I feel that that might go over some reactions' heads. I feel like there should be some. It's kind of like the Mr. Ballin effect, right? Where there's certain sound effects, whether that be like a shink or like a knife sound effect. In fact, there was water stepping sound effects as well as a electric buzz. I think that that's very additive, and I think it showcases a quality and standard of care that many other YouTubers would just not do. So I wanted to give special attention to that. It might be minute, it might be like small to some, but it really does show the difference in quality content.
18 years old, Joe Foss has just lost his dad, his best friend, and his hero all at once. Despite that, he does exactly what he thinks his dad would have done. He becomes a man of the house, he starts running the farm, he works 2 jobs, and somehow manages to still finish and graduate high school his senior year. Despite managing all of this, basically taking over his dad's entire life, he still is aspiring to be a pilot, so he tries to go to college. He gets accepted, but he makes it through the first semester, and he can't manage it. He can't make enough money, help raise his family, and do college all at the same time, so he's forced to drop out, and the dude just goes to work. Every moment he's not sleeping, he is working his ass off. By 1936, 3 years after his dad passed away, he had made enough money to pay off his family farm. And by that point, his younger brother was old enough to at least manage the farm by himself to the point of breaking even without the mortgage hanging over his head. So he turns the entire farm over to his brother and his mother, and he goes off to college. And this kind of sets the tone for the rest of Joe's life. He is the old guy right out of the gate. He is a 21-year-old freshman in college. All the other kids are 17, 18 years old. And here's Joe, 21-year-old man, already been through the ringer in life, but here he is. So he makes the best of it. He tries to, follow in his dad's footsteps. He gets involved in boxing. He plays football. He's not super great at either one, but he does pretty well. While he's doing that, he's working at the college as a janitor to pay off his tuition, and he's taking all of his extra money and spending that on flying lessons so he can learn to become a pilot.
What an absolute tragic backstory. I mean, this man has had an entire character arc. I mean, clearly just absolutely talented from a young age. His father, having served in a war, being able to just be like, yeah, no, he's a damn good shot. Being able to go up and plane and just understanding that sense of purpose is like, this is what I want to do. And just being able to just take over after such tragic circumstances. There's obviously a grieving period for people, 100%, and people can and should take as much time as they need to grieve, whether that be a pet, whether that be a friend, whether that be a family member, or someone that you just known for a period of time. Grieving is definitely valid, and I think people misconstrue that with weakness. The fact that this man was able to just overcome so much adversity and just pick up a lot of these pieces and be able to, handle 2 jobs and a farm and college, especially for a period of time, is just legendary. I have immense respect for that, and I think that's why I have a lot of respect. I think a lot of the military can do this. Not saying that it's necessarily a, correlation causation, not necessarily saying that, all military members are able to do this. I think that there's a greater proportion of military members who, especially the on the ground people, who will just want to get something done and just, all right, well, I need to get that done. Guess we're getting it done. Don't ask how it got done, but it's going to get done, especially when it comes to the Marine Corps, from what I understand. And I have respect for that attitude. I mean, as somebody who's seen a lot of people who want to talk about things ad infinitum, they want to just talk about the same thing, and nothing ever really truly gets resolved. Actions are louder than words. Yes, words have power, but actions do have weight. It's something that I've said for a number of years at this point, and I have a lot of respect for that.
So he goes on, he graduates college, he becomes a pilot. He's got like 100 hours of flight time. In 1939, he joins the civilian pilot program, racks up even more flight time. And then in 1940, it's looking like we're going to go off to war. So Joe is figuring like, okay, well, if I don't volunteer now, I'm going to end up getting drafted. So I might as well volunteer, and that's going to give me the best shot I can get at going off to become a fighter pilot, because that's what he wants to do. Not only is Joe going to volunteer to be a fighter pilot, he is going to volunteer to be a fighter pilot in the United States Marine Corps, because he knows that the Marine Corps always gets into the action first. The problem is, in order to do that, he has to make it all the way to Minneapolis, Minnesota from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, so he hitchhikes the entire way there with $5 in his pocket. So Joe ends up making his way all the way to Minneapolis, Minnesota, and the week that he gets there was 28 men volunteering to be fighter pilots for the Marine Corps, and only 2 of them are going to get selected, and the 2 selected are Joe Foss and Ralph Gunderball, a man that would go on to become one of the legendary Flying Tigers under Claire Chennault. So Joe's thinking he's got the job, he's super pumped. The recruiter tells him to show back up in a couple weeks, so he's like, cool, hitchhikes all the way back home to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. A couple weeks later,
I do want to say, I think this is a prime example of when I hear the rhetoric that you don't, you don't choose to become a Marine, you are a Marine. It's some form of rhetoric like that. Dude hitchhiked there and back to make it happen. That is such a flex that is next level.
he hitchhikes back when the recruiter told him to. Unfortunately, Joe does not have the job yet. He has to go through elimination training, which is they've basically taken the 16 best candidates and they're going to put them through the ringer and only select the top 8. But Joe, with 100 hours of flight time under his belt, nails it and he gets the job. So now Joe's got the job, but he's got to go to Pensacola, Florida to go through flight training for the United States Marine Corps Aviation Program, and they're not going to send him there, so he hitchhikes from Minneapolis all the way to Pensacola, Florida. Once he gets to flight school, he plays dumb. Like, he's already got a target on his back because he's the old guy. They're looking to eliminate him right out of the gate. What he doesn't want to do is tell the instructors, like, hey, I've got over 100 hours of flight time. I know what I'm doing, because then it's going to turn into the whole, like, oh, no, you think you know what you're doing. You don't actually know what you're doing. You need to learn everything from me the way I do it the right way. So he just plays dumb the entire time. You know, like, the officers are training him. They're like, this is a rudder. That's a propeller. He's like, ooh, ah, yeah, wow, I'm learning so much the entire time. Regardless, he crushes the entire...
That entire I'm learning so much. literally some React content.
Flight program, ends up graduating. After graduating, Joe's allowed to request any type of service that he wants, so he requests to be a fighter pilot and is immediately denied because he's apparently too old, being like 25, 26 years old at this point in time.
I'm old, not obsolete.
So while he's apparently too old to become a fighter pilot, he's also one of the best pilots that they have, so they just immediately make him an instructor at Pensacola right after he graduates the program. Shortly after that, Japan ends up attacking Pearl Harbor. At this point, Joe realizes shit's gonna hit the fan. They're going to war. He does not want to be stuck in Pensacola, Florida, being a flight instructor, so he starts volunteering for anything and everything he could possibly get into, and the first thing that accepts him is a photo reconnaissance unit. So Joe goes into this camera program, and he quickly realizes that most of these guys aren't actually the aviators, a lot of them are professional photographers and camera people, and they know cameras inside and out already, which is the majority of what he needs to learn for the course. And he can't keep up. There's so much to learn with these cameras. He ends up training with these cameras 16 hours a day so that he can graduate through this course at the top of his class. After graduating, he ends up getting promoted to first lieutenant and shipped out to San Diego, California, presumably to go to war here pretty soon. The obvious problem being he wants to be a fighter pilot and not a camera guy, but anything that'll get him closer to combat is apparently the right way to go. But once he does get to San Diego, California, he does get some good news because his college sweetheart, June, had actually taken a job at a medical center in San Diego, California, knowing that most Marines end up there eventually, and she tracks down Joe and they end up getting married.
I find you.
Nice.
And while that's going on, Joe is going to work every day with this photo reconnaissance unit, getting ready for war, and he has to fly over and watch all the carrier-based fighter pilots training and learning how to take off and land on an aircraft carrier, and he's jealous. That's what he wants to do. So on his own time, he goes to the naval command of the actual program and is like, hey, I want to learn how to do this too. Put me through your program. The Naval Command is like, absolutely not. We don't have enough time to train our own Navy guys. We're not going to be training a Marine on the side. But Joe's not taking no for an answer, so he goes back every single day bugging this Naval Command. And finally, the commander's like, you know what? Fuck it. I can't get anybody willing to do funeral service duty. So if you want to go ahead, work your job, do funeral service duty, and have time to go through my course, I'll let you go through. I'll sneak you in. Now, to most people, that seems like a lot, but to Joe, this is just Tuesday. The guy's been working 3 jobs every day of his life since he was 10 years old. This is nothing. Not only does he go through and graduate the Naval Fighter Pilot program, he sets the gunnery record for the entire course. So at 27 years old, Joe Foss has basically just brute forced his way into being a fighter pilot, even though he's too old to do it. He is immediately promoted to captain and assigned as the head of a squadron in VMF-1. And VMF-1 is headed to the Pacific. Where in the Pacific, he has no idea because everything's a big secret. They're worried about spies. It's wartime. Everybody's paranoid. So he's basically just told, like, kiss your wife goodbye, get your ass on the boat, we're going.
I mean, the man's got dedication. He's got drive, does he not? I mean, he has such determination to be able to just every single day, hey, put me through the program, put me through the program, put me through the program. And it's like, oh my God, sure, if you can do these things, sure, maybe I'll get you in. And it's like, the fact that he could just do it, like, there is some hardcore dedication and hardcore drive there. I have nothing but respect for it. Like, I mean, it's just... It's inspirational is what it is, right? I mean, like, I put out daily videos, but it's nowhere near the same. It's not. I think the philosophy of just, like, you know, do it until something sticks is relevant in both of these, but it's like, man, that man is actually just built different. I also really like that his high school sweetheart ended up showing up to California to track him down. I think that there's something really endearing about that, and I think that that's the relationship, at least kind of a basis of it, the relationship that kind of appeals to people like me. Of like, I don't know. I know there's people who like their trophy spouses. I know there's people who want to be the provider, the sole provider. Someone like me has always just been more into the mutual partnership kind of thing, like still being independent individuals, but just, you know, being able to come back to each other, that kind of thing. So that does resonate a lot. And I think that that's really cute, really endearing. And I think that's honestly just super cool. Very, very cool. And just this man's drive to get through the program. I mean, obviously the matter of age comes into play there. As far as I'm aware, I think there is a cutoff for the draft as well. So I don't know how his age... He might be young enough. I don't know how his age would have interacted had he not volunteered, because he's, you know, and there's still value, even though he's past a certain age, he still has value, thus making him an instructor. But then obviously Pearl Harbor happens, times are changing, and the fact that he just has that drive to be able to just volunteer for things, knowing what he wants to do, and then just like, hi, the aircraft carrier, I want to do that. I have mad respect for him, absolutely. And then in the whole, like, this whole secrecy thing just kind of hits a little strange, especially because of, I'm sure Habitual Line Crosser's done a video on it. Something, chat that wasn't necessarily private, something, reporter was in on it. Thankfully, reporter reported on it after the fact. Therefore, no people on the ground, or I guess in the planes, were at risk. That being said, I very much with knowing very little of this person's background, this Hexeth individual that people keep touting as the savior of the military. That is a big F up from what I understand. And I have very, very strong opinions on anybody who is going to put the lives of everyday soldiers needlessly at risk and not seemingly have the merit or skill to do their jobs. This has actually been looking from a strictly scholarly standpoint, from a strictly information standpoint, in regards to U.S. military personnel, specifically military personnel who are in positions of power and command and trial by combat. As far as I'm aware, I've been told that the UCMJ does protect military personnel from trial by combat. That being said, I'm going to be transparent. I have no idea the full extent of what the UCMJ is, what it does, what it protects from, what it doesn't. So if you do have information in regards to military trial by combat, where those protections extend and do not extend, I'm very interested in it from a scholarly perspective. But I think that it's one of those that is good to see in a video like this, because like I've had to do a video recently, people don't know when to shut up. And it's a problem. Very specifically, what I was talking about was a financial institution I was at who had the wrong name for somebody and was just giving out details of a vehicle, make, and model. Go watch that video for the full context. People need to shut up and not disclose shit. Like, pardon my language, but they need to stop doing that, because it's getting really old really fast. And especially when you talk about the military and putting people's lives needlessly at risk. Yes, they're in the military. That's kind of what they're signing up for, right? Like, as I'm sure Joe Foss knows, right? He knows that this can be a fatal line of work. Absolutely. It's just, come on, guys. Let's stop saying stuff. Respect NDAs. Respect OPSEC. Respect not saying things. Like, there is information that is absolutely on a need-to-know basis, whether that's going to be something about like a vehicle make and model or account information at financial institution, or whether that's going to be deployments into the Pacific Theater or military operations in modernity. Yeah, very hot topic recently. I like that Fat Electrician. It's some people might view it as a throwaway line, but I think it illustrates how people of the past really placed a lot of emphasis and a lot of focus on security and making sure to not be idiots and say things in public chats.
So they're making their way into the Pacific Theater on this boat, and after a while, they're almost there. He finally gets briefed on where they're going and what they're doing. Joe and his men are going into Guadalcanal. Guadalcanal was recently just captured by the United States Marine Corps from the Imperial Japanese, and the Imperial Japanese want it back because on Guadalcanal is Henderson Airfield, and this airfield is the most important airfield on the planet because the Japanese need it so that they can forward their objective and attack Australia, and America needs it to defend Australia and attack the Japanese. This is the most important island on the planet at this point in time, and Joe Foss and his men have to go in and defend it. A couple days later, October 9th, 1942, they wake Joe and his men up at midnight. It's pitch black outside on the ocean, and they're like, what the fuck is going on? And command tells Joe, we're going to have to catapult you off right here, right now. You're going to have to fly into Henderson Airfield and land. The Japanese Navy has the entire island surrounded, and we can't punch through with our Navy. This ship is going to get sunk if we try to get any closer, and if we launch you off during the day, they're going to be shooting at you the entire time. This is the best bet. Okay, and just so we're on the same page, this is kind of a big deal. Like, this is very dangerous. The Grumman F-4F Wildcat fighter that they're going to be flying is not a nighttime airplane. It doesn't have nighttime navigation equipment. It wasn't designed to fly at night, navigate at night, land at night, and now they're just going to yeet his ass off a ship surrounded by the enemy. He's going to have to fly sneakily into the island and land on an airstrip with a terrain that he's not even familiar with. Right. But hey, I
mean, literally, this is what we were just talking about, right? Needlessly putting soldiers' lives at risk. So there's a logic train here. This is the best option. I'm not going to discount that. There are people far more compensated and educated than I am in the military who have to make decisions like this, right? Like, this is the best bet from a strictly logical perspective in regards to daytime, AA, being unable to punch through with the Navy. This does logically seem like this would be the best bet. Therefore, Joe Foss and other individuals around him being told this is what you're going to have to do, this is the surefire best bet. Yes, absolutely. Risk does come with the territory. There is the risk of damage, fatality, etc. Right? So things like this, I as a civilian acknowledge, like, yes, you guys sign up for a lot. you put a lot on the line, if not everything on the line, which is why when we talk about military management in the Fat Electrician videos or, habitual line crosser videos, right? And inability to do a job that they should be qualified to do, that's why I get pissy. That's why I, as a civilian, will absolutely speak up and tell these people, you need to man up. Come on now. You're in this position. Like, can you just, I want to just, to be the head of the DOD, and I was thinking about this last night, to be the head of the DOD, someone in Hexeth's position, inherently implies that you are the best at what you do. Oh, that you have mastered styles, you have mastered martial prowess, you can fight, you can win, you have the wit, the tenacity, the drive, a amazing adversary that anybody would be lucky to spar against, right? Oh, that is the expectation. But if you're not, well, I mean, what good are you? What worth are you? If someone from, the Navy SEALs, somebody from the Marine Corps, anybody could take you out with ease, who would follow that? That just seems pitiful from a position like that. Like, yes, you do take a risk going into the military, and it is in management's best interest to take into account that these soldiers, everyone on the ground, that they are keeping them in mind and doing the decisions that are beneficial to you on the ground, because that's what a good leader does. That's how that works. That's how that should work. So in a situation like this, yes, there's no understanding of the terrain. This is in aircraft that don't have nighttime capabilities, right? Or at least limited nighttime capabilities, and you're relying on the skill of the pilot. It is a very dangerous thing to do. But this is weighing the options, and with management that you assume has your best interest. This is the best way that we can further our goal and also keep you the safest. That's how that should work. This is the kind of military I like hearing about. This is the kind of military that I think people need more of, because it holds the interest of the soldiers in highest regard. There's no, whoa, there's $200,000 missing from some army food budget. Get out of here. You should have to pay every single cent of that back, plus military base, car dealership interest, and be dishonorably discharged. There is zero reason for anybody to do that. Sorry, I'm tangenting super hard, but this is a really good video on why I do certain things, on why I have certain opinions, and why I feel certain things.
That's what we're doing, so it's exactly what Joe does. Gets launched off the ship, takes off, makes it to Henderson Field, lands. He's got 11 other men with him. The next morning, all the pilots that they're relieving are super pumped to leave. Joe, being the commander, goes to the veterans that have been fighting in combat and is like, hey, would you mind giving us and the guys some pointers? We're new, we're fresh, we haven't been in combat yet. You guys are the veterans here. How about you, stick around for a little bit, train us, and help us out? And they pretty much look Joe in the eye and tell him it doesn't matter. You guys will all be veterans in a day or two anyways. And they're absolutely right, because Guadalcanal in October of 1942 is absolute hell on earth. Every single night, the Japanese are coming out of the jungle, launching just wave after wave of attacks. They're hitting the bases with naval gunfire, and then during the day, they're sending massive fleets of fighters and bombers to strafe and bomb the airfield 24/7, all day, every day. It is a fight. And the first couple days for Joe and presumably his men is absolutely horrible. They can't sleep at night. There's explosions going off 24/7. They're getting rattled left and right, just sitting there in their tents, hoping that they don't catch a stray round or a stray bomb from the enemy. They can't do anything. They can't sleep. Joe's starting to wonder to himself, what the fuck did I get myself into? I've very clearly made a horrible miscalculation. I shouldn't be here. This is a mistake. The next day, October 13th, 1942, Joe's up. It's his turn at bat. The Marines have been fighting off land forces all night long. Daylight is here, and there is a formation of 32 Japanese bombers and Zeros coming in, and Joe has to go up, leading a flight of 7 Wildcats to intercept. So Joe and his men get up in the air. They're fighting with the Japanese. Joe hones in on this little formation of 4 Japanese Zeros. He's already up above him, so he goes and dives, shoots down, blows one to pieces, dives right past the other 3. Big problem now, he's got 3 Zeros on his tail. So now Joe's shitting his pants. He shouldn't be here. He's got 3 Zeros on his tail. They're shooting at him. He can hear the bullets hitting his plane, and he's like, this is it. I'm gonna fucking die. But hey, you gotta fight till the end, right? So Joe just keeps trying to lose these planes. He's got Marines shooting anti-aircraft fire, whizzing past his plane, trying to hit the Zeros. He's trying not to get hit by that. He's got the Zeros behind him, shooting at him. It's just complete chaos, and Joe is right in the middle of it. Eventually, Joe's engine ends up getting hit, and his engine's down. He's losing control of the plane. He's getting hit left and right, so he just lines it up with the airfield, and he's gonna have to land this thing at full speed. He's not gonna slow down to give the Zeros time to hit him and make an easy target. So Joe lines up, there's still flak fire whizzing past him, shooting at the Zeros, and he lands on the airfield at full speed, doesn't stop, drives straight through the airfield and crashes it into a grove of palm trees. So Joe, obviously kind of rattled, just crashed a plane at full speed into some palm trees, kind of like comes to his senses and is like, okay, all right, I think I'm good. I took the camera course, camera guy never gets hurt, right? Okay, I'm fine. Completely unscathed after crashing this plane, climbs out of his plane and starts walking back to the airfield. He gets there, everybody is shocked that he survived. They didn't even bother to go check on him because they thought for sure he had died. And the entire time he was walking back to the airstrip, he's thinking to himself like, I gotta get the fuck off this island. This sucks. I've made a horrible miscalculation. But as he comes back up, people see that he survived and they start cheering and clapping and patting him on the back. The Japanese planes have retreated and he has shot down one of the superior Japanese Zero fighters and lived to tell the tale. He's a hero. The mechanics go, they check on his plane, they count over 250 bullet holes in his plane, and he still managed to crash land the thing into a tree and walk out completely unscathed. It is apparent to everybody but Joe at this point that he is in fact the main character. He's the camera guy that never gets hurt. He is in fact wearing the plot armor. And as Joe's like looking around, still in shock, shaking hands, getting patted on the back, he's looking and it's all 17 and 18-year-old kids that are pumped because he actually pulled it off. He survived. He shot down a Japanese Zero, and Joe comes to the realization that he's got to be the main character too. He doesn't just see a bunch of other Marines. He sees his little brother and his little sister in the faces of those 17 and 18-year-old kids that are now looking up to him the same way that his siblings did after his dad died. Looking back on it later in life, Joe said, and I quote, "The look I saw in them, they were depending on me. I've never gotten over it. I just figured I got to lead. These kids are going to depend on me, and I've got the experience. I can lead these kids, and we're gonna go. If they want to go that bad, let's go."
Let's fucking go.
I mean, yeah. Effectively, this man is the main character. He's got that plot armor. I don't know what caliber the Japanese Zeros shoot. But I mean, it's going to be bigger than something like 9mm, obviously, right? I mean, so you assume plane having over 200 bullet holes in it. I mean, they're going to be pretty sizable holes. Like, this man absolutely finessed. I mean, we're talking like, you know, Abyss Watchers or like Slave Knight Gale in Dark Souls 3. Just, man, absolutely just dodge rolls around every single attack and gets the odd backstab here and there. So that's really interesting. And yeah, being thrust into that main character role of, you don't necessarily just see people around you. It's that you see people who have meaning to you, your little brothers, your little sisters, and to understand that you have had a situation thrust onto you. You can still absolutely decline it. You do. Free will does exist after all. In a situation like that, it is entirely within the realm of possibility that you could very easily just say, you know, this island sucks. I want to go home. Obviously within military nuance, obviously with, you know, orders, legal lawful orders, etc., having to request certain things, go up the chain of command, bureaucracy, if they'll let you do things, if they won't let you do things. Obviously, there's some nuance there, right? But I think this is what separates people like Joe Foss from others. And I think this is what can separate a lot of the military from some people who, I guess, would want to play military or say that they understand, is that there's this just do attitude that I keep talking about. And I have a lot of respect for that. To be able to be thrust into the position where you are effectively John main character, and to meet that with open arms, to be able to say, all right, let's do this, let's go, right? There's something special about that. But yeah, no, like that's wild. The finesse around them is wild, especially as I'm being informed. And thank you, Messer, for that. A pair of 7.7mm machine guns and a pair of 20mm cannons. Stand by doing the math. Yeah, those ain't small rounds by any means. And this man absolutely just, he wore that plot armor.
And with that, it's no longer Joe Foss's goal to simply survive and make it off this island. It is now his goal to fucking win. If he could be the man of the house at 18, he's going to be the man of the sky over Henderson Field at 27. The next day, October 14th, Japanese show up again. So does Joe, shoots down another zero, crash lands his plane again. 3 days later, October 18th, Japanese show up again. Joe shows up again too. This time he shoots down 2 zeros and a bomber, becoming an ace in his first 9 days on Guadalcanal.
Nice.
But it's not just Joe doing it all alone. All the other Wildcats that Joe is leading into combat adopt the nickname Foss's Flying Circus, and they are fucking up the Japanese planes. 2 days later, October 20th, Joe goes up, shoots down another 2 zeros. 3 days after that, October 23rd, he goes up and shoots down 4 zeros in a single run. And now, after a whopping 2 weeks on the island, Joe's really starting to get his feet underneath him. He knows what he needs to be doing. The Wildcats have 6 50 caliber machine guns on the front, but the problem is you run out of ammunition too quick, and Joe is a hyper-aggressive, super accurate gunner. He likes to get right on top of his prey before he shoots him down. And if he has 6 guns firing all at once, he's gonna burn through his ammo too quick, and he's gonna waste too many bullets on a singular plane. So he actually goes and has the mechanics remove 2 of the 6 machine guns on his plane so that he can conserve ammo while shooting down as many planes as possible.
Wild.
And by this point, the Japanese are getting pissed. They have the entire island surrounded. The Marines are cut off. They shouldn't be able to keep resisting to the degree that they are, but the Marines are somehow pulling it off. Every night, Marines like John Basilone are out on the front lines, repelling waves of Japanese soldiers that are coming in from the jungle. And every day, Joe Foss and the Flying Circus and the rest of the Cactus Air Force are up overhead, out fighting and outmaneuvering the Japanese planes. The Marines are running so low on supplies that they're actually sending crews out to find all the downed airplanes on the island, to strip out all the ammunition, all the usable parts, and siphon all the gas, trying to keep as many Wildcats in the air as possible. Whenever a Japanese sniper manages to slip past the Marine Corps' front line and open fire on the pilots and the mechanics that are working on the planes at night, the pilots grab their guns and go out in the jungle and hunt down the sniper, including Joe. Joe said he never actually got one of the snipers, but on one occasion, he did see a mechanic have a near miss, and the mechanic got pissed off, stormed into the jungle with nothing but his K-bar, and came back about 45 minutes later covered in blood with a fancy new Japanese rifle.
Nice.
Easy to hide. They're on jam and they never run out of bullets.
The Japanese military is throwing absolutely everything they have at the Marines on Guadalcanal, and they just can't fucking break them. And because of it, the Japanese are getting absolutely pissed. On October 25th, the Japanese decide that is the day. This is the day that they are finally going to take Guadalcanal back and defeat the United States Marine Corps. On October 24th at 9:30 p.m., the entire Japanese fleet opens up on Henderson Airfield with naval gunfire, just full broadside attacks, and it goes all night long. The Japanese are dropping star clusters over the airfield, lighting the entire thing up. Joe said it looked like broad daylight on Henderson Airfield all night long, so that the Japanese planes flying overhead could accurately drop bombs. The only thing the Marines could do was just hunker down and take this absolute beating. They're blowing up the airfield. There's craters and potholes all over it. They're hitting planes that are on the ground. They're hitting infrastructure. Men are getting killed left and right, and all they can do is sit there and tough it out. And this goes on non-stop until 4:30 a.m. the next morning. At this point, from the aerial view, there's no movement going on Henderson Field. All the Marines are hunkered down. So they fly over, don't see any movement. They think they've killed absolutely everybody. So they send up a bunch of Japanese planes, and these guys are thinking they're just gonna land on the airfield and take it over because they've already killed everybody. Unfortunately for them, the Cactus Air Force still has 8 Wildcats capable of flying, and Joe Foss to lead them.
My turn.
So Joe Foss and the Flying Circus get in their Wildcats. They go to take off. The airfield is so damaged that 2 of them end up crashing and don't make it into the air. It is now Joe and 5 other Wildcats going toe-to-toe with the Japanese Air Force. Joe gets up in the air, immediately shoots down 2 zeros. He's out of ammo, circles back, lands, and it is like a NASCAR pit stop. They get him more gas, more ammo. He's back up in the air, goes back up, and shoots down 3 more, becoming the Marine Corps' first ever ace in a day. The rest of the Flying Circus manages to shoot down 14 more planes, sending the Japanese packing for the day. After repelling the Japanese, they get a little bit of a break at this point in time because the Japanese kind of have to take a step back and figure out what the fuck they're going to do next. They've just thrown absolutely everything they had at the Marines, and they threw it right back. And unbeknownst to Joe back home, he is now one of the most high-profile men in this entire war, shooting down 15 enemy planes in 12 days. After the Japanese get refitted, they attack again on November 7th. Joe and the Flying Circus go up to intercept again. Joe manages manages to shoot down 1 Zero and 2 recon planes. The rest of the flying circus shoots down the 4 other Zeros, wiping out the entire flight. As Joe circles back around, and as he starts approaching, he sees parachutes, and as he gets closer, he realizes there's no pilots inside of these parachute rigs. It's just the rig itself floating down towards the ocean, and he has no idea where the pilots went. And he's like, okay, what's going on? And then he gets a little bit closer to another parachute, and the pilot's still inside of it, at which point he witnesses the pilot unhook himself from the rig and plummet to his death. And Joe, some farm kid from South Dakota, has no understanding of the Japanese Bushido code of honor that these
Japan, which prompted the importance of loyalty, honor, and martial arts. Bushido philosophy versus who not fearing. There is also some good tension with Bushido, namely, as I will call it, Sudoku, for censorship reasons. There is definitely some contention in regards to Bushido. Like, it's one of those, like, it's one of those philosophical contentions and debates. Honor and loyalty taken to an extreme. What is and isn't proper? What is and isn't ethical and moral, right? There's some interesting philosophical debate that happens when Bushido comes up as a conversation. Definitely haven't had these conversations come up in everyday conversation. No, sir. Definitely didn't play Legend of the Five Rings TCG for a number of years, and definitely didn't have this as a mainstay of conversations.
Guys are operating under the whole, like, you know, it's better to die in combat than be captured or to lose, so he just doesn't even know what to make of it.
That's fucking weird, huh?
So after witnessing that, he's like not knowing what to think, and then he like finally like snaps back to reality of like, okay, but fuck, back to the airfield. Okay, so he turns around, all the other planes in the flying circus are gone. It's just him out there by himself, and he's like, oh shit, I'm way far away from Guadalcanal. I'm way out here chasing down that last recon plane. So he starts making his way back to the island. He's running low on gas. It's not looking good. Then he ends up running into this enormous rain squall, and the rain is so thick that it ends up stalling out his engine. So now Joe's kind of shitting his pants. He's still way far away from Henderson Field. He's flying over the ocean. There's like several other smaller islands from the Solomons on either side. And he's like, he said in an interview later in life that he was like trying to rock the plane forward, you know, like a little kid does with a push toy or something. Just like, come on, fuck. And he just comes to the realization he's not going to fucking make it.
Oh, damn. I mean, to be fair, like, that is wild. Ace in a day status. Like, man is absolutely just, he is built different. Like, yeah, you have to assume that the Japanese military at this point in time is incredibly pissed off. And I think that is a accurate description, because, like, I mean, it's no different than playing games like Dark Souls, where it's like you're out of you've thrown everything you have at this boss. You're down to you've already used your last Estus, your last Ashen Estus. You've already embered. You've already used your divine hidden blessings, and you still are like, God, last like maybe like 10% of the boss's HP bar, like Slave Knight Gale status or like Black Flame Freed or something like that. And you're just like, I literally just need to hit you like twice. I just need to touch you and you go down, right? That kind of thing. Yeah, like that's just to throw everything they have at that island and to still just be repelled by the Marine Corps. That is disgusting, and I mean that in the best way possible. Like, that is, how do you, like, I feel like tactics fail at a point like that. I feel like conventional tactics kind of fall apart in certain ways when you deal with so much value on board like that. Because, well, by sheer numbers, we should be winning. Like why are we not winning this? Like, we were doing things by the book. Sure, you might be doing things by the book. But this is the Marine Corps. or any unit of value, really, who's just able to turn the tide like that. Like, to be able to just go full turtle status and just protect the point. That is wild to hear about.
He ends up crashing the plane into the ocean, gets tangled up in his cockpit, grabs his Mae West life vest, deploys it. He's fucking tangled up in the cockpit. So now the life vest is trying to pull his neck up when his foot's tangled up in the cockpit. He almost drowns. He's like 30 feet underwater at this point. He finally breaks free, floats to the top, coughing up a bunch of seawater. And the worst part of all, Joe, farm kid that grew up in South Dakota, doesn't know how to fucking swim.
He's definitely dead.
What?
And the next best part, it's shark-infested water.
Oh, no.
Dead. Definitely dead.
So at this point, Joe Foss is just absolutely shitting his pants, floating out in the ocean, can't swim. There's sharks fucking everywhere, or at least that's what he thinks. So he's trying to figure out like, oh shit, I might be bleeding. I don't know. Sharks are attracted to blood. How can I make the sharks not eat me right now? So he has his like little survival kit attached to his Mae West life vest, and inside of it is a water purification kit. So he starts taking the water purification kit and putting it into the ocean water, hoping that that's gonna like trick the sharks or obscure the smell of blood if he has any, or deter the sharks somehow. But apparently it works because he doesn't end up getting attacked by a shark.
Not a mindless eating machine.
He does, however, sit there floating in the ocean with his life vest for hours, praying his ass off. And apparently it works because the plot armor kicks in, and of all the things to happen, a Belgian missionary on a nearby Solomon Island of Maleta ended up seeing his plane go down and convinced the local indigenous people to go out in canoes and try to find him. So like 3 hours go by, Joe is just floating in the ocean. It's now dark, it's nighttime, and off in the distance, Joe can hear people speaking, but it's not in English, so naturally he just assumes that it's the Japanese looking for him, so he doesn't try to draw any attention to himself. He just kind of like tries to like stay quiet and small in his life vest, and then after a while he finally hears somebody say out in English, it was the Belgian missionary, point the flashlight over here, and he's like, oh shit. He calls for help. They end up fishing him out of the ocean and dragging him back to this small island of Maleta. So from here, Joe spends like 5 days on this island with this indigenous tribe and this missionary and a couple of nuns, and he said it was the best time he had the entire time he was in the Pacific Theater. He said it was the best food he had. It was all fresh meat. There was all these exotic fruits, which, I mean, again, farm kid from South Dakota in 1920, he doesn't know what the fuck a papaya is. So this is the first time he's ever eaten all these delicious fruits. He's having a great time. They're hooking him up. He got to live inside of the chief of the tribe's hut the entire time. They're treating him like royalty.
I am Chief Tanabuck. What names may we call you?
I am Miguel,
And I am Tulio.
and they call us Miguel and Tulio.
Eventually, the missionary and the nuns somehow end up getting word back to Henderson Airfield that they have this guy, and they send a Catalina flying boat out to Maleta, and they pick him up. So Joe shows back up to Henderson Airfield, gets right back to work. November 12th, the Japanese show up again. But this time, it's like 60 Japanese planes, and they're launching a massive attack trying to dive bomb American ships that are sending in reinforcements and supplies to Henderson Airfield. So Foss leaps into action, swoops down, shoots down 2 torpedo bombers and a Zero, and now he's out of ammo. So now there's nothing he can do. He's got to cut, run, go get more ammo, more fuel, and leave these ships as sitting ducks. But he comes up with an idea. Rather than turning back around and running, he goes up and circles around the ships super high up in the air, acting like he's a recon plane. And in doing this, Joe manages to trick the Japanese into thinking that he's a scout for a much larger American formation, and that this entire thing is a setup. These boats don't actually have reinforcements on them, and it's all bait trying to get the Japanese to send their whole air force out so that an even bigger American formation can come out and wipe them all out. The Japanese take the bait, they drop their bombs over the ocean, they turn around and flee, and Joe has just saved the day with literally no ammunition and just his wits.
What's the funny, open the gates of the city, just sit there playing your loot or whatever it is. Enemy army's like, this is obviously a trap. No, there's no way that this has to be a trap. And then it just deters the invasion just by dude just sitting there just playing his instrument. That's the one that comes to mind.
3 days after that, he goes up again, shoots down another recon plane, and then Joe Foss is finally taken out, but it was not by the Japanese. It was by fucking mosquitoes.
Now, malaria is, of course, transmitted by mosquitoes. I brought some here so you could experience this. We'll let those roam around the auditorium a little bit.
No. I mean, to be fair, like, wow, to have such an just a sequence of events to go down, avoid drowning, just sheer luck. Belgian missionary, just recovering, and then going right back into the fray, as well as just Deception 100 to just imagine. I mean, imagine like the Japanese had to drop their bombs in the ocean and then retreat, right? Like that is military assets being unable to be used against him and people that he serves with. Like, that is denying advantage, right? That is fantastic. This man is so big brained.
Joe ends up getting malaria. He's hospitalized for like a month. At this point, Joe could just go home and sell war bonds. Like, he's a war hero.
Could.
He's one of the best aces America has at this point in time, but that's not how Joe gets down. He's got to go back and be the fucking dad for Guadalcanal, and that's exactly what he does. On January 15th, he goes back into combat after kind of recovering from malaria. And when I say go back into combat, I don't mean he like got back to the island on January 15th. I mean, he showed up to the island on January 15th and then shot down 3 more Zeros. After he lands and it's confirmed that he did in fact just shoot down 3 more enemy planes, he is informed that he is immediately grounded, and within a matter of like a week or 2, he is shipped off of Guadalcanal, and he has no idea why. It's not until actually making it back to the United States that he realizes that he was shipped back home because he had shot down a total of 26 enemy planes, tying the all-time American record set by Eddie Rickenbacker in World War I, and he is actually America's first ace of aces in World War II. And he had no idea. He had no clue that back home for weeks and months he had been on the cover of newspapers and magazines being hailed as one of America's greatest fighter pilots. He didn't know, and honestly, he didn't care. He didn't care who shot down the planes or who got credit for shooting down the planes. He was just trying to keep everybody alive and get everybody through this living hell on Guadalcanal. In the 3 months that Joe Foss and the Flying Circus were on Guadalcanal, his flight of 7 Wildcats is credited with downing 72 enemy aircraft, 26 of which came directly from Joe himself. And in doing so, he has apparently become too valuable to the overall war effort, so they've drug him back to the United States to parade him around to try to sell more war bonds to raise money for the war. And just like every other hero,
you would think that this would be a modern tactic. I keep coming back to this. I mean, sure, we have what, the military-industrial complex, or there's a whole discussion that goes along with that, right? Like, you would think that this would still be a thing, right? Like, I don't know, take somebody from Delta Force, right? Parade them around, right? I mean, they're probably going to hate it, don't get me wrong. I understand Delta Force is kind of like the show pony of the Special Forces, and I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as far as pop culture is concerned, right? Delta Force is kind of like the spec ops that people like to default to, right? I mean, I feel like you could still do this, right? Can you imagine, like, I don't know, U.S. Marine versus Logan Paul, right? Set up a wrestling match there, right? I feel like this is a valid strategy, especially if you're trying to drive up recruitment numbers. I don't know. I think it's interesting to think about, and like how it feels antiquated in a sense, but it also feels like it would make perfect sense.
I covered that they do this too. He hated every minute of it and would have much rather been back in combat with his men. So in May of 1943, he is awarded the Medal of Honor and then sent on his war bonds tour. But there is a little bit of a silver lining, because while he's getting paraded around the United States and going on radio shows, he did get to hang out with his wife June the entire time, and she is now pregnant and they are going to have their first kid. Unfortunately, after a year of getting paraded around the country, he is deemed expendable yet again, and he is being sent back into combat before his first child is born.
Oh, that's rough. Especially because it feels like, that can be taken away at a moment's notice, right? It is, and that's why I've taken issue with military recruitment being put onto things like the Unsubscribed podcast. Not that I necessarily I don't dislike that, right? I actually rather like the crew on the Unsubscribed podcast. Sure, I'm sure we disagree on some things philosophically, but it's like, I have respect for it. It's why, because you are useful until you are not, and then your services are no longer required, and it is clearly your fault. I personally do not want to see, sure, we have Unsubscribed podcast being in the basement of the Pentagon, right? I do not want to see, and I will continue to advocate for this, I do not want to see people like anyone on the Unsubscribed podcast, any YouTuber, influencer, streamer who the Department of Defense is going to try to contract with or try to use for recruitment. I don't want to see them thrown under the bus. I would, in fact, take great issue with that, because here we can clearly see, you're tying, you're this ace of aces, 26 down Zeros, or 26 down aircraft, and then, you're expendable again. Go back to work. Right. And I'm sure certain people in the military, absolutely. cool. I get to go back to work, right? I mean, there's been a number of videos that the Fat Electrician has done where they hate being show ponying around, and I can absolutely like I can respect that. I disagree with how expendable historically the military has viewed certain assets, and so that does come across as, okay, we have recruiters who, I don't know, can't recruit for some reason, trying to use the Unsubscribed podcast and use military influencers to market and do their recruitment until, I guess, they deem that they are not worth their time. They deem that they're just content creators and they're just YouTubers. Their services are no longer required. That is disrespect that I expect to happen and will take great issue with when it does happen, because that is scummy AF.
February 1944, Joe is put in command of VMF 115, and they are headed off back to the Pacific, and this time, instead of flying Wildcats, he is going to be flying Corsairs. Now, when Joe went into the Pacific the first time on Guadalcanal, this was like the turning point of the Pacific theater for World War II. Up until then, the United States military had been getting their asses kicked, and they managed to hold on to Guadalcanal, and that was kind of the turning point. And the entire time that he's been out of combat, it has just been an onslaught of America kicking ass. And by this point in the war, the Japanese are on their heels. They don't have many planes and many good pilots left. So a lot of what they're going to be doing is search and destroy missions of hitting ground targets. And because of that, Joe is never presented with another opportunity to shoot down another plane to break Eddie Rickenbacker's all-time record. He is merely going to be the man that ties it. That record is not going to be broken until later in 1944 by the legendary Dick Bong, America's ace of aces. But again, Joe doesn't really care because he never cared about the record in the first place. He was just trying to get his guys through it. That being said, I've already done an entire video covering Dick Bong, and the dichotomy between these two pilots is absolutely hilarious. You've got Dick Bong, basically the prodigy of a pilot. He just goes up there, out-finesses, out-maneuvers, and outclasses enemy pilots left and right every single time. And then you've got Joe Foss, the Marine aviator, and he is truly the embodiment of the Marine Corps. He's not going up there and out-finessing and out-maneuvering and outclassing them on every level. He's going out there with brute force and ignorance, mag dumping as many enemy planes as he can find, crash landing his fucking plane, hopping in another plane, and going back up there again. The dude's not naturally gifted. He's not a prodigy like Dick Bong. He doesn't have a new state-of-the-art plane like Dick Bong did in the P-38. No, he's just hardworking, refuses to take no for an answer. You can't kill the motherfucker. He's going up in the air in what is now like an outdated, outclassed Wildcat going up against Zeros, and he's just doing what he can with what he has, and somehow he manages to win every single time. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. Anyways, after being in the Pacific for a while, conducting these search and destroy missions, he ends up getting malaria again, and because he got it again, it was significantly worse. He ends up getting hospitalized and losing a significant amount of body weight. He goes from being like 180 pounds to 115 pounds. It almost kills him. He's taken back to the United States. He has to see a bunch of different specialists, take a bunch of different medications, and by the time he recovers, the war is essentially over, and he goes into retirement.
I don't believe you.
I mean, to be fair, I'm thankful I've never had to have malaria. Hopefully I never have to have malaria. I hear that, this is recent military history, right? The malaria pills I hear so much about, like I've heard on Campfire Stories with Mike Burnfire and Zach Hazard. I hear those malaria pills were awful. Like, I hear they were awful, and I'm sure someone's going to chime in with how bad their experience was. And honestly, I encourage it, especially if you find value in it, and if you think other people would benefit from it. I mean, I welcome the discussion, as long as, once again, things that shouldn't be talked about, anything, especially under NDA or OPSEC, doesn't get talked about. I don't need to know things. People don't need to know things. It's okay that things are need to know basis. I think the malaria pills are open enough, though, that should someone actually share it, I think it should be fine. Yeah, no, it sounds like it sucks, and losing that much off your body weight is definitely a little rough. We'll put it that way. That's rough. That's the only words I got for that. I want to hear about his so-called retirement.
And from here, Joe Foss decides to go on what I can only describe as the world's greatest saga of side quests, maybe ever. So he gets done doing all the military stuff, gets back home to South Dakota, pulls together whatever money he has, links up with one of his other pilot buddies from World War II. They pool their money together, they buy a trailer. This guy's family lives on one half, Joe and his wife and his daughter live on the other half, and him and his buddy just go hunting for an entire year straight. During this time, he ends up having another daughter, and after a year of hunting, he gets that out of his system, and then his family starts having health problems. June, his wife, is having diabetic-related issues, and his first daughter, Cheryl, is diagnosed with cerebral palsy. So at this point, shit's kind of hitting the fan back at home. He realizes, okay, time to put the daddy pants back on and get to work, and that's exactly what he does. So Joe Foss and his war buddy that he's been living with and hunting with for the past year, who was also a pilot in World War II by the name of Duke Corning, they end up starting a crop dust spraying business together, Foss Spraying, and it becomes outrageously successful. So successful that they end up buying the local Studebaker franchise and open up Foss Motors as well. So now he's making money, he's paying the medical bills, he's a successful businessman. Korean War breaks out, he gets called back into duty. They're not going to ship him overseas, but they want him to come in and train all the new fighter pilots. So he goes off, he does that for a little bit, comes back home. From there, he serves in the Air National Guard and achieves the rank of Brigadier General. So he's a general, he's running two separate successful businesses, he's one of the greatest fighter pilot aces of all time, he has a Medal of Honor, he's a war hero, so people want him to run for politics. 1952, he runs for South Dakota House of Representatives, he wins. By 1955, he becomes the youngest governor of South Dakota at the age of 39. Right around the same time he gets elected governor, his crop dusting business burns to the ground with no insurance, so him and his partner have to rebuild that while he's being the governor. So while being governor, he rebuilds his business and is still regarded as being pretty good at being governor the entire time. So good that he gets reelected, serving 2 terms as governor, which is the maximum that you're allowed to do.
Right.
During that time, he had his 4th kid and his first son named Frankie, and as his 2nd term was coming to an end, Frankie was diagnosed with polio. Luckily, Frankie pulls through, makes a full recovery from polio, but between the polio scare and his first child having cerebral palsy, he recognizes a problem of like kids getting sick is fucking horrible, and Joe likes to fix problems, so that's exactly what he does. So he goes and creates a children's hospital, the Children's Care Hospital and School of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. But that's not enough, so he becomes the national president of the Crippled Children and Adult Society. So he serves his term at doing that, and then shortly afterward, he's on a business trip, and while he's on this business trip, he meets somebody, and they're like, oh, hey, you've done all kinds of crazy shit. How would you like to be the commissioner of the AFL, the American Football League, the direct competitor to the NFL, the National Football League? So Joe Foss is like, fuck it, sure, why not? He is the AFL commissioner from 1959 till 1966, and during that time, they became a major competitor to the NFL, at which point Joe Foss proposes the idea of like, hey, what if we had like a national championship game of the best team in the AFL versus the best team in the NFL, which eventually would lead to the creation of the fucking Super Bowl. Okay, I mean, I'm losing track, so this is more for me than it is for you, but just so we're all on the same page, the ace of aces in World War II, Medal of Honor, war hero, successful business owner, governor, founded a children's hospital, served in a national children's organization, created the motherfucking Super Bowl, and he's still not done. Then, because he's like super into hunting and outdoor stuff, he ends up getting his own TV show that becomes outrageously popular, The American Sportsman, that he hosts from 1967 till 1974. And then he goes on to be the president of the NRA, the National Rifle Association, during the 1980s, and then he finally retires and gets to live happily ever after. But
did the contention with the NRA, and I'm trying to be as dance around this as lightly as possible because I'm actually looking for a good faith response. The NRA contention, did that start after his departure? I can already tell that by even mentioning it, I'm going to get some weird comments. All I know is that there is contention with the NRA specifically. I'm not a specialist on the subject, nor am I an authority on the subject. I'm kind of just seeking clarification in a good faith capacity.
Before he would pass away, he would make headlines one last time in 2002 at the age of 87 years old. In 2002, 87-year-old Joe Foss war hero, governor, philanthropist, businessman, TV show host, NFL Super Bowl creator Joe Foss was boarding a plane to go from Sioux Falls, South Dakota to Arlington, Virginia. Don't know why. If I had to make my bet, in the twilight of his life, maybe he was going to a particular cemetery that's kind of famous to see a lot of his dead buddies at the end of his life. So he boards the plane, or at least attempts to, but he gets stopped by the TSA. Why does he get stopped by the TSA? Because they think that his Medal of Honor is a fucking ninja throwing star and don't want to let him keep it.
No.
I want to shit on the TSA, but it's 2002 and 9/11 just happened. So like, I understand they're at a heightened level of everything. So I'm just going to blame it on young kids not knowing literally anything. You know, like you see the internet videos of people calling the cops because somebody thinks a $2 bill isn't real and they think it's counterfeit. And then the cops show up and the cops have never seen a $2 bill either. It's like that. Okay. So just for the record, for all the young kids in the audience, this is a fucking Medal of Honor. Okay. It's not a ninja throwing star.
Regular cannon you say? No, says I. Except that ninja star.
Good old Joe Foss, though, after being detained for an hour and being forced to strip down to his underwear on 3 separate occasions while his Medal of Honor is being passed around like a hot potato from supervisor to supervisor that thinks that an 87-year-old war hero is trying to smuggle a ninja star onto the plane, isn't upset at all, takes everything in stride, and just moves on with his life, and ultimately passes away the next year in 2003 as one of the greatest men of all time. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a story of Smokey Joe Foss, one of the greatest fighter pilots in American history that you have now heard of. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang, out.
I'm so glad he did this video. I'm really glad.
Every time I do one of these videos, I feel like such a giant bitch. Hardest thing I've ever had to deal with in life, I ruptured a pec bench pressing too much. Meanwhile, you got guys like Joe Foss just being served shit sandwich after shit sandwich after shit sandwich at every conceivable turn in life and just continues to be a complete badass the entire time.
So I actually have a take on that. I think I have a conclusion on that I think can resonate with some people.
They were hitting me on the back, congratulating me, and I looked at these kids, 17, 18, and the look I saw on them and that they were depending me, I've never gotten over them. I just figured I got a lead. These kids are going to depend on me, and I've got the experience, and I can, excuse me, I can lead these kids, and we're going to go.
That's a man that knows. That is 100% a dude that I have mad respect for him, 100%. So I actually have a conclusion on that. Where I mean, I you know, yes, hearing about Mr. Joe Foss and some just these just absolute storied life and this retirement, quote unquote, that is so storied. I think that part of it comes down to the ability to do a thing versus the ability, I guess, the inability to do things, if that makes sense, right? So putting it into perspective, and I've talked about this before, when's the last time you had, at least in the US, when's the last time you had somebody over at your house? When's the last time that you got to hang out with your friends like you did back in, say, 2008, early 2000s, right? When you were excited to have people over, when you weren't necessarily worried about 20 different things, when you weren't, you know, when it's Friday, you're getting off work, but you're already worried about going in on Monday, right? And there's a sense of stagnation. There's a sense of powerlessness. There's a sense of an inability to do certain things. And I think that all feeds into it. I think with Joe Foss specifically, there was an ability to do things. Yes, he absolutely put in work. I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that he was handed life. No, I'm not. I think that there was, his hard work could be rewarded. And in the modern era, it does not matter if you are a hard worker. What matters is if, I guess, people like you or you know the right people. I mean, the financial institution, talked about it earlier. I left the financial institution because I was skipping lunches and breaks. I felt I wasn't being respected. I felt that other people specifically with specific things weren't adhering to policies. And so I just left. And that's actually when I started doing this about 2 years ago. And it's unfortunate because you see so many good workers get out of industries because their hard work isn't recognized. They can have the best work ethic. They can have a higher sense of morality and apply ethics to everything that they do. They can follow policies to a T, but they are still absolutely just dogged on. And other people who aren't deserving of it do benefit from that, which is why I make a strong case for skill and merit, right? And absolutely, like, if someone can do the job, I don't care what gender you are. I don't care what your background is. Can you do the thing? You do the thing. Awesome. Why should I care further? I think that's pretty reasonable. So I think that he was in an era that absolutely was able to reward hard work and effort and reward being just built correctly. And I think that when the Fat Electrician brings up, like, yeah, he tore his pec trying to bench press too much, right? It's not that he hasn't gone through things, and him being in the military, he's clearly been through more than people like I have, right? I think it comes down to what society is willing to reward and how things in modernity don't quite function the way we expect. So I think that it's interesting. I thought this was an amazing video, and I'm very glad that the Fat Electrician brought this video up, and I'm very happy to have learned about this Mr. Joe Foss and his storied retirement. I have nothing but respect for him. This was a fantastic video, and I wanted to take a second to really kind of just address. I've been kind of thinking back and forth if I still want to react to Fat Electrician or not, and I think that it transcends my opinions at this point, because at the end of the day, there are people who do find value in these reactions, and as long as he's okay with reactions, which he said he has been in the past, but obviously, subject to change, I think it extends beyond me at this point, and there are people who do find value in this, and I do find a lot of value when I have comments that they'll leave comment on the video saying that they served in the Marine Corps for a number of years, and it's a nice change of pace to have somebody just say something along the lines of, if you served in the military, grats, your medical's paid for. Doesn't matter if it's 70% disability, doesn't matter if it's 100% disability, doesn't matter if you have a cold, right? If you served, you should have the ability to do that. And that's not a veteran worship standpoint. I feel it's a pretty common sense perspective. You're merely cashing in on the benefits that you earned, choosing to do a job being in the military. And to hear people talk about how even at 70%, they feel like they can't, if they feel disingenuous, or they feel like they can't utilize those benefits, or having the odd comment about how, oh, well, we're just going to fire a bunch of VA staff, and you know what, this is going to be suck in the short term, but in the long term, this is going to be great. And to have people actively say that they are having trouble getting follow-up appointments right now, there's more good that I can do by continuing to do what I do. Continuing to be professional about it, obviously, but continuing to try to be an advocate for what things I feel are right. And it's not that I have any expectation. I'm a civilian. I'm not military. I will never be military. I don't have the mindset for the military. The Army would 100% turn me away because of my mentality. And that's not a self-depreciating jab. There is the mission. There is nothing else that matters. Why should I care about somebody next to me? Why should I care about my superior officer if the job is to do X? X will be done at personal cost to me or others. And that's not what you want in the military. And that's fair and reasonable. I'm open about this. I'm transparent about this. I make as much openly transparent as possible so people can make the best educated decision on who and what they're watching. I do it because I'm compelled. When I see something wrong or something that isn't fair or something that is just absolutely ludicrous, I feel compelled to speak up about it. I don't belong in military circles. I don't have that sense of belonging, and that's not a jab. That's not an attack. I am a civilian. My experience only goes so far, and there are other people who are able to have those military experiences. I can do what I can do. I can speak up on a civilian standpoint, and defend things that I feel need defending. I am compelled when I see something that is just wrong, BS, bogus, in bad faith, that is definitely going to negatively impact people. You don't have to be a veteran. You call it being neurospicy, having that neurodivergent sense of justice, if you will. I can't idly sit by as stuff like that unfolds, especially when people clearly have earned things, right? Whether you've worked at a company for 40 years and you're owned your pension, or if you've served in the military and you're really worried about cashing in on your benefits because, it's only 70% disability that you have, or you are really struggling and you really need that follow-up appointment, but you're just unable to get it because people are actively crying out to dismantle systems and fire people en masse to interrupt, if not stop your care completely. I can't sit idly by. I can't sit idly by and have to worry about, and this is something I reasonably shouldn't have to worry about, that if military management is eventually going to throw a bunch of these creators and streamers and content people, influencers, under the bus when they no longer serve their purposes. That is why I'm harsh on things. That is why I feel that I will continue to react to these, because at minimum, I feel like I do have some sort of input. I do feel like I bring some sort of value to the table, because people say that there is some value in these. I do feel like I ruined these, though, because I don't know how I made this an hour and 15 minutes. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. And thank you, Fat Electrician, for bringing an amazing video to YouTube on a platform that is so flooded with AI slop and so flooded with just drama after drama. It is very good to see videos like this with citations, that is well researched, that is put together very well, that has personality to it. This was amazing. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next one.